And then obviously I came to Islam. My family are, well, I say they're not really that religious. We don't go to church on a Sunday. We don't do all that. We don't say mass. We don't say grace. We did have Christmas and Easter, but there was not a lot that was really for a religious purpose about it. It was just a celebration of, just a celebration of Christmas or Easter. In reality, my family's not overly religious. I think we're probably the most liberal when it comes to religion. As I said, we had a family bereavement, and for me, after that family bereavement, I started questioning that if God was really such a good person and so forgiving and merciful, how could he do this to our family? How could he take away someone who was so central to our family? And I guess I just stopped believing that there was a God at all. I mean, I took some elements of Buddhism with, I believe in reincarnation and karma, and I took some elements. I still hold true to some values from Christianity, the most important one being the sanctity of marriage. I believe in that absolutely, and I do not believe in divorce. I would not divorce unless there were very, very extreme circumstances. But I kind of took the moral meaning from different religions, and those morals became central. So doing good to other people, helping those in need, respecting other people's differences. But I never really followed a set religion because for me, in my very illogical brain as a teenager, religion meant bad things will happen. You will have a good period of time and then you will have a massive calamity befall on you and you will suffer heartbreak and misery. And I thought, well, if I don't believe in that, then it will still happen, but it will hurt less. But on the flip side, I then found out that at the most difficult points in my life, I had nothing to hold on to. Everything else was falling apart around me and I had nothing to hang on to get me through it. So I then started trying to find religion again. In university, I was pagan for the first 2 years of university. I mean, the first year I was just kind of, do I, don't I, do I want to, do I not? Oh, not sure. And then in the second year, I thought, right, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to go for it. So I became a full-blown pagan, doing all the spells and the threefold rule and the pentacle and all that stuff. And then I heard about World Hijab Day from my friend in Australia. And I'd never worn a hijab before. And I signed up to do it and then realised I've never worn it before. So I just wrapped a scarf around my head and went out with it on. And the reaction I got was it wasn't really bad. It was just really shocking because I'd never noticed it before. And it was so shocking to me that I thought, well, that's how it was over a day. Let's try it for a month and see, A, where that leads me, and B, what the public's reaction to it is, to see somebody going out day after day with a hijab on. And then the first day that I wore the hijab, I thought, well, I'll make a video diary and, document how it was today, how I felt. And I literally just did it and didn't expect many people to look at it. I thought maybe 10, 11 tops. And it now has over 1,000 views. And then somebody, my friend Nazma Khan, who actually founded this World Hijab Day and is the CEO of a website which sells hijabs and hijab pins and so forth, sent it to Katrin Nye at the BBC. And then she emailed me asking, would you like to do an interview about World Hijab Day? And then from there, it seems I've gone everywhere. I mean, I'm in the Muslim Times, I'm on Islam, I'm in the Malaysian Digest. I didn't even know the Malaysians had a newspaper, but there you go, you learn something new. It's amazing that one person's video has gone everywhere and people are talking about it. I mean, I never expected it to happen. I just thought yeah, 10 or 11 people will see it and that'll be that. I'll just continue to write it and maybe a few people will be interested. And now it turns out that my story, which I update daily because it's like kind of like a blog, has had over 1,000 views. My video has had over 1,000 views. And lots of people seem to know who I am all of a sudden. And it's very strange. Well, at first I was a bit worried that it was going to fall because I didn't have any pins to pin it down. I was a bit worried that my hair was going to show and I was going to have to keep pulling it down all the time. And then my second worry was, will I look, kind of a weird one to have, but will I look stupid wearing this? Because obviously it wasn't a proper hijab, it was just a scarf. And then I got more confident wearing it, so I was all right walking about with it. And then I noticed how people were reacting. And I just thought to myself, I feel like I should be ashamed of myself, but I don't know why I should be ashamed. I have nothing to be ashamed of. I haven't broken the law. I haven't done something ridiculous. Why am I feeling so ashamed? And it was really odd because I'm not normally someone who goes out on the street and feels ashamed of themselves for no reason. I usually feel ashamed of myself for a reason. And then when I thought about it, I realised that I was feeling ashamed because people were not looking at me. They were, one man crossed the street as soon as he saw me. Another woman on the bus pulled her children away from me as soon as she saw the hijab. And I realised I was feeling ashamed because people were making me feel ashamed. And as soon as I realised that, I said to myself, well, that's their problem. They want me to feel ashamed. They want me to feel that big. And then I said, well, I'm not going to feel ashamed. I have not got anything to be ashamed of. I am proud of what I'm doing. I know why I'm doing it, and I'm doing it for the right reasons. And then the next day, I just walked out with it, happy as anything, and didn't care what people thought. At first, it was literally because a friend asked me to, and because I'd said I would. And then, as I realised that people were judging me based just on what I wore, I realised that actually I was doing it to say to people, Muslims have a voice. The reason you are so upset about it is because you're not listening. You are not making the link between yourself and Muslims because you see a woman walking down the street with a hijab on and you think three things. You think her husband is Muslim, she was forced to be a Muslim, and she's oppressed. None of which are true in my case. My partner is an agnostic. I was not forced to become a Muslim, and I would dearly love to see the man that tries to oppress me. I would love to see that. And for me, it then became about not silencing other Muslims and not standing up and being a figurehead for a cause. It was about saying to the general public to go and listen, to sit down, be quiet, and let somebody else tell you their story. Because I'm sure lots of people are guilty of it, either consciously or not, but we all judge people in an instant, and we shouldn't really do it. So it became about saying to find a Muslim person and talk to them and to learn about Islam before you start judging, because you can't judge someone based on what they're wearing. Some people I've judged based on their first impression and they turned out to completely surprise me, which just goes to show you cannot judge someone just by what they're wearing. I realised that just wearing the hijab wouldn't teach me a great deal about Islam. It would teach me how Muslim women feel, maybe, but it wouldn't teach me about the religion. So I looked on my university's library for an English copy of the Quran, and I borrowed it from the library, and then I started reading it, and I'm now on chapter 5, which is the feast in English. And it just made sense, because it doesn't pretend to be more than it is. It doesn't say that, oh, so-and-so was the son of God and so did this. It just says, here is God, here are his prophets, and here are the people. And that was how it worked. God sent prophets to various countries to spread the word. He didn't send a son of God to be the be-all and end-all of religion. It's a lot more reasonable and a lot more realistic, because in the Bible you hear that Jesus was the Son of God who was sent to save mankind, end of. It doesn't mention any of the other prophets. Whereas in the Quran, it says, yes, there was the prophet Jesus, yes, there was the prophet Moses and Abraham and Isaac and so forth, but they were all prophets. They weren't sons of God. They were just sent as messengers to teach. And for me, that was central, that idea of realism, because I can't deal with something that is so unrealistic that it says that there was one man who was, definitely sent from God by him onto this planet all on his own to go and save the entirety of mankind. It can't work like that, because we hear about Prophet Jesus in the Bible when he was 5, and then there is absolutely nothing until he's about 20 odd and starts doing all these miracles. And then you hear about him until he's about 30 odd, and then he dies on the cross. Whereas in the Quran, it says that Jesus was sent to Israel to help the Israelites, and Muhammad was sent to help the Muslims. And that worked for me. If that makes sense, it worked. It made sense. And then I realised that it made sense because it was right. It was that hole that I'd been trying to fill with non-religion was actually being filled with religion. Ironically enough, I'd spent so long saying God is dreadful, God is horrible, God is this, that, the other, and saying some truly awful things about God. And then it turned out that actually God was the one person I needed. A lot of my friends and university colleagues have been really, really accepting. Obviously they ask me why, which is fine. Why are you a Muslim after all this time, which is fine. And then after I explain to them the reasons behind why I'm a Muslim and tell them the whole story, then they're fine with it. My partner has been really supportive. He's been learning about Islam. He's been reading books about it. And I kind of accidentally dumped him in our new mosque with all the Muslim brothers. But he got on fine. He was fine and happy, and he likes learning about it. My parents and family, well, I haven't actually told them I'm a Muslim yet. I will eventually. If they ask me, I'll tell them, but it's not really my number one priority. They differ on opinion. They have some rather set different views, which I don't necessarily agree with, but it is their views, and I respect that they have different views, but they're not 100% behind the endeavour at all. I think my mother is mostly concerned that I'll be attacked in the street because I'm wearing the hijab and I'm in the media, which is a perfectly fine concern to have. I can understand where she's coming from. But if I am attacked, I will obviously do what most citizens would do and inform the police. But it is slightly difficult when you tell your parents that you're doing something and you tell them why you're doing it and they can't understand and they can't accept. But hopefully one day. With every other religion I'd researched and looked into, I could always find something that I really, really could not agree with. I think in Buddhism I can't remember what it was with Buddhism, but it was something that I could not fundamentally agree with. Christianity was just too unrealistic for me. All the other religions I'd researched, I had a massive problem with. But with Islam, although I do have some problems, like the fact that I can't have a Muslim wedding because my husband is not Muslim, it's not something I fundamentally disagree with, because I can still marry my partner, and I am still marrying my partner, but it won't be in a Muslim ceremony. It's a civil ceremony, which is fine, because it actually works out quite nicely, because that way we won't have a massive religious debate of, why is my daughter having a Muslim wedding when she, it avoids a lot of religious arguments. But I'm still learning about Islam, and I'm sure I will encounter some things that I say, well, I don't really agree with that. But there is no fundamental thing with Islam that I disagree with. And I think that was the